The shuttle broke through the thick gray clouds with a soundless flash of blue light. For a long moment it hovered over the Earth, a world once alive with billions of voices, now covered in silence and dust. Below, the continents looked like bones under ash. Cities lay in ruins and oceans shimmered with metallic reflections. Inside the shuttle, 3 alien girls stared through the glass in disbelief. Their names were Lyra, Tess, and Vera, explorers from a faraway world that once fought against humanity. To them, Earth was a graveyard, a forbidden place said to be lifeless for over 200 years. But now, something had called them here, an ancient human distress signal still echoing through the stars. "We shouldn't be here," Tess whispered, her voice trembling. "The record said this planet is dead." Lyra leaned closer to the window. "Dead planets don't send signals," she said softly, eyes glowing faintly blue. "Someone, or something, wants us to come." The shuttle touched down in what looked like the ruins of a city. Tall buildings leaned like tired giants, their windows broken, streets covered in sand and vines. The air outside shimmered faintly, heavy with old radiation and dust. When the doors opened, silence poured in, a silence so deep it felt alive. The girls stepped out carefully. Lyra's boots sank into layers of gray ash. A broken toy lay near her feet, a small human figure smiling under the dirt. She picked it up, brushing it gently. "They had children," she whispered. "Just like us." Vara was scanning the area with her wrist device. "No life readings," she muttered. "No animals. No plants, only residual energy, deep underground." They moved through the empty streets like ghosts exploring a forgotten world. Rusted cars lay overturned. Buildings had holes that looked like they were melted, not broken. As they turned a corner, they saw something strange. A mural painted on a wall. It showed humans and stars, hands reaching toward the sky. Above it, the words were still visible in faded letters. "We will return." Tess shivered. "Return to what?" she asked. Lyra didn't answer. Her eyes kept moving, scanning every shadow. The silence was heavy, too perfect, too empty. Even the wind didn't dare to blow. Then a faint sound and metal shifting echoed from behind them. Vera turned fast, her plasma pistol glowing. "Did you hear that?" "Yes," Lyra said. Her voice was low, calm, curious. They followed the noise, weapons ready. It came from a nearby building, an old supermarket covered in vines. The automatic doors were half broken, one hanging from its hinge. Inside, everything was covered in dust. Shelves lay fallen, cans rusted, and ceiling lights flickered with weak energy. Somehow still working after all these years. "Maybe it's just machinery," Tess whispered. "Old power systems waking up." But then the air shifted again, a soft scrape of metal on stone. Someone was there. Lyra lifted her hand, signaling silence. The girls spread out, moving between broken aisles. Their hearts, if aliens could call them that, beat faster. Suddenly, a shadow moved across the wall, tall, human-shaped. "Identify yourself," Vara shouted, stepping forward. Her voice echoed sharply in the empty building. Nothing answered. Then a voice, deep, human, and cold, spoke from the darkness. "You shouldn't be here." The sound froze them in place. It wasn't a recording. It wasn't a ghost. It was real. From behind a broken counter, a man appeared, tall, rugged, covered in scars and dirt. He wore pieces of metal armor mixed with old human military fabric. His face was rough but alive. He aimed an old plasma rifle at them, glowing faintly green. For a moment, no one moved. "A human," Tess breathed, eyes wide. "That's impossible." He stepped closer, the rifle steady. "You're trespassing," he said in a quiet, rough tone. "This planet is not yours." Lyra slowly lowered her weapon. "We thought it was empty," she said carefully. "We meant no harm." "Empty?" The man gave a bitter laugh. "It's far from empty. You just don't know what's waiting under the ground." The girls exchanged looks. Vara whispered, "He's lying. Humans can't survive this atmosphere." The man heard her. "Maybe we're harder to kill than you think." His eyes glinted under the flickering light. "Now leave. Before they find you." "Who?" Lyra asked. He didn't answer. Instead, he pointed to the shattered window. Far in the distance, in the gray clouds, faint red lights flickered, moving closer. "They've been hunting anything that moves for years," he said grimly. "And now they've seen your ship." The alien girls looked at the sky, the red lights multiplied, spreading like fireflies. What are they? Tess asked, fear rising in her voice. The man's grip on his rifle tightened. Scavenger drones, he said. Built by what's left of the invaders you call your kind. He turned toward the back door, gesturing sharply. If you want to live, follow me. For a moment, Lyra hesitated. This strange human, this living proof of survival might be dangerous. Or their only chance, she nodded once. We follow. As they ran through the ruins, the red lights grew brighter behind them. The air trembled with the hum of machines. In that chaos, one truth began to rise in the alien girls' minds. Earth wasn't dead. It was watching. And somewhere beneath the dust and silence, humanity was still alive. The tunnels beneath the ruined city were cold and dark. Water dripped from cracked pipes, and every sound seemed too loud. The alien girls followed the man silently, their glowing eyes cutting through the shadows. He moved fast, like someone who had walked these paths 1,000 times. His steps made no noise. He carried his rifle close to his chest, every muscle tense. Finally, they reached a heavy door made of steel. The man pressed a small code on the side panel, and with a groaning sound it opened. Warm, flickering light spilled out, from an old oil lamp. Inside was a small underground shelter. Rusted machines lined the walls. There were books, wires, and strange human gadgets scattered around. A soft hum came from a small generator in the corner. The man turned toward them. Close the door, he said. Lyra obeyed. The door sealed with a sharp hiss. For a moment the silence returned, thick and heavy. Who are you? Tess finally asked. Her voice trembled a little. The man looked at them, his face unreadable. Name's Eli, he said. Last human of this city. Maybe of the whole planet. The girls stared in disbelief. Vara's scanner beeped weakly. That's impossible. No human DNA was supposed to survive this environment. Eli gave a dry smile. Then maybe your machines are just as blind as your leaders were. Lyra stepped closer. Her expression was calm but curious. We didn't come to fight. We followed a signal, a distress beacon from this sector. Eli's eyes darkened. That signal wasn't meant for you. He walked to a metal table and placed his rifle down. Then he opened a small old box. Inside was a photo, faded, nearly erased by time. It showed humans standing together under a blue sky, smiling. My people tried to fight back when your kind came, he said quietly. Most died. Some hid underground. I was just a boy back then. The girls listened, silent. Eli continued, his voice hardening. You came with your ships and weapons, calling us primitive. You thought you'd won, but you didn't understand what humans are made of. Lyra tilted her head slightly. You're saying others survived? Eli shook his head. Not anymore. The planet's poisoned. The machines left by your armies. They hunt anything with a heartbeat. Tess frowned. The drones we saw? He nodded. They patrol day and night. Sometimes they dig up bodies just to be sure no one's left. The lamp flickered. In that soft light, Lyra saw the exhaustion in Eli's eyes. Not just from years of struggle, but from loneliness. How long have you been here? She asked gently. Too long to count, he said. Long enough to forget what silence felt like before the war. Vara crossed her arms, uneasy. We came to learn, not to destroy. Eli gave a bitter laugh. That's what they all said before they burned the oceans. No one spoke for a while. The generator buzzed softly in the corner. Then a sharp sound broke the stillness and a faint beeping from a screen on Eli's desk. He turned instantly. They've found your ship, he said. The alien girls rushed to the monitor. A red dot blinked on the display. Dozens of signals moving toward the crash site. They'll trace the energy trail straight here, Eli muttered. You've brought them down on both of us. Lyra stepped forward. We can help. We have weapons. Eli grabbed his rifle. Not against them. They adapt faster than anything you've seen. He walked to a panel on the wall and flipped a switch. Old lights flickered on, showing maps of underground tunnels and abandoned subway routes. We move now, he said. There's an old shelter 5 miles east. They won't detect us there. The girls followed him again, this time without hesitation. The sound of machines grew faintly above them, metallic wings cutting through the air. As they entered the deeper tunnels, Tess whispered, Why do you still fight? Eli didn't turn around. Because someone has to remember what it means to be human. The light from his lamp cast long shadows on the tunnel walls. 4 shapes moving through darkness. One man and 3 alien girls bound by fate. None of them knew yet that this meeting would change everything. That buried beneath the ashes of Earth lay secrets neither species was ready to face, and, for the first time in centuries, the silent planet had found a heartbeat again. The tunnels opened into a vast underground chamber. Rusted machines slept in rows, their lights dim and blinking like dying stars. Pipes covered the ceiling, dripping water that echoed in the silence. The air smelled of iron and old smoke. Eli walked ahead, his lamp swinging in one hand, the plasma rifle in the other. Behind him, the 3 alien girls followed, their steps careful, their glowing eyes scanning every dark corner. "This place used to power half the city," Eli said quietly, "and now it's my home." The chamber widened into a hollow base, walls lined with human technology, holograms half dead, screens flickering with static. On one table lay maps, tools, and pieces of armor. Tess looked around, amazed. "You built all this alone?" Eli nodded slightly. "Humans had to learn fast. We didn't have alien tech, just our hands and what we could salvage." Vera touched a broken terminal. Her fingers traced symbols written in the old Earth language. "Your people were strong," she said softly. "Even in ruins, I can feel that." Eli said nothing, but the faintest smile touched his lips. Lyra walked toward a glass container at the back of the room. Inside were hundreds of data drives, old human records, journals, and memories. "You've been collecting these?" she asked. Eli looked up from his workbench. "Every story matters," he said. "If we're forgotten, we're truly gone." He tapped on one of the screens and a projection flickered to life. It showed the surface of Earth centuries ago, now blue oceans, green forests, shining cities. People laughing, walking, holding hands. The alien girls stared in silence. Lyra's voice was low. "We were told humans destroyed themselves." Eli turned, his eyes sharp. "No, you destroyed us. Your fleets came from the stars with promises of peace, and when we refused to kneel, you burned our skies." The girls exchanged uneasy glances. Tess looked down. "We didn't know the truth," she whispered. "Our history books say the virus killed everyone." Eli's face hardened. "The virus came after the war. You left your weapons behind. Machines that didn't stop fighting. They spread it." He walked closer, his voice quiet but full of weight. "You believed Earth was abandoned because you wanted to believe it. Because guilt is easier to bury than to face." For a long moment, none of them spoke. The hum of the old generator was the only sound. Finally, Lyra stepped closer to him. Her tone was gentle. "And yet you saved this place. You kept your people's memory alive. Why?" Eli looked at her with tired eyes. "Because someone has to." Then a low rumble shook the ground beneath them. Dust fell from the ceiling. The lights flickered once, down then twice. "They found us," Eli said quickly, grabbing his rifle. The alien girls turned toward the tunnel entrance. The echo of metal footsteps grew louder, dozens of them. Tess raised her weapon. "Scavenger drones," Eli nodded grimly. "They're faster than before. Smarter, too." Without hesitation, he pulled a lever on the wall. Heavy steel doors began to slide shut. "We hold them here," he said. "If they breach the tunnel, this base is lost." The first drone burst through the smoke, a spider-like machine with glowing red eyes. Eli fired a single shot. The explosion lit the chamber, sending sparks across the floor. The girls joined in, their energy weapons humming through the darkness. The air filled with fire, smoke, and the sound of metal screaming. Lyra covered Eli's flank while Vera hacked the control terminal, trying to seal the upper levels. Tess shouted, "More coming from the east side." Eli slammed another power cell into his rifle. "Then we make them regret it." For minutes, chaos ruled the chamber. The walls shook and the heat from the weapons burned the air. When the last drone fell, silence returned, broken only by Eli's ragged breathing. Vera looked around at the destruction. "They knew we were here, how?" Eli wiped blood from his cheek. "They track energy signatures. Your ship gave them a path." Lyra stared at the shattered machines, her voice quiet. "You've been fighting them alone all this time." Eli sat down, exhausted. "Every day," he said. "They want to erase what's left of us." She knelt beside him. "Then maybe it's time you stopped fighting alone." Their eyes met, human and alien, once enemies, now bound by survival. Outside, thunder rolled across the sky. Lightning cracked through the clouds, lighting up the broken city above. For the first time, Eli allowed himself to breathe. Maybe, just maybe, the planet wasn't silent anymore. The storm outside had grown stronger. Lightning flashed across the ruined skyline, painting the city in pale blue light. Every strike revealed broken towers and twisted streets, the skeletons of a world that once lived. Deep beneath that dead city, Eli and the three alien girls prepared for another night that might be their last. Eli worked silently, loading old power cells into his plasma rifle. His movements were quick and practiced. Lyra watched him from the corner, curiosity in her bright eyes. Tess and Vera were repairing their scanners, trying to read the drone frequencies. "They won't stop," Eli said finally, his voice low and rough. "Once they've marked us, they'll hunt until nothing's left." Lyra tilted her head. "They're machines. They don't rest?" Eli shook his head. "No, they were programmed to finish a war that ended centuries ago." He looked at her. "Your people left them behind, and they never forgot the orders." The words hit like a shadow in the room. Tess stopped her work, guilt flickering in her face. "Our ancestors made those machines," she said softly. "We didn't." Eli gave a half-smile that wasn't kind. "History doesn't care who pressed the button, only who pays for it." Before anyone could speak again, the alarm sounded. A high-pitched shriek from the monitor. Red symbols flashed across the screen. Dozens of signals moving fast. "They've found the tunnel entrance," Vera said sharply. Eli grabbed his rifle. "We hold them off long enough to reach the surface exit." Lyra's pulse quickened. "The surface? But the drones," he cut her off. "I know what I'm doing. Follow me." They rushed through narrow tunnels lit only by flickering lamps. The air trembled with distant explosions as the drones blasted through barriers behind them. Sparks rained from the ceiling. Eli moved first, his senses sharp from years of survival. He led them through collapsed sections, sliding down broken rail lines and climbing ladders covered in rust. The aliens followed, their boots clanging softly. At last they reached a metal hatch at the end of the tunnel. Eli slammed it open and cold wind hit their faces. They were outside again, the surface of the earth wild and empty under a black storm sky. The ruins stretched for miles. Fires burned in the distance. The drones were close now, their red light slicing through the rain like angry eyes. "Keep low," Eli ordered. He sprinted toward an old building with shattered walls. Inside, they took cover behind broken pillars. The sound of metal wings filled the air, a swarm approaching. Lyra crouched beside Eli. "You can't fight them all." Eli gave a tired grin. "I don't need to. Just enough to make them chase me instead of you." Before she could stop him, he stepped into the open. Rain poured over him, soaking his armor. His rifle hummed to life. The first drones appeared over the rooftops, black spider-like machines with spinning wings and glowing red cores. Eli fired. A single shot tore through the storm, exploding one drone into pieces. Another followed, then another. The sky lit up with plasma fire. "Come on," he shouted to the girls. "Move to the next street." They ran, dodging falling debris and blasts of red light. The ground shook as drones crashed into buildings. Tess turned, covering their retreat with bursts of energy. Farah hacked into her wrist device, trying to jam the drone signals. "I can slow them down," she yelled. "Do it!" Eli called. For a few seconds, the swarm hesitated, confused by interference. Eli took the chance, throwing an EMP grenade into the air. It burst with a blinding flash. Half the drones fell from the sky like broken birds. Lyra stared at him in awe. "How did you do that?" Eli reloaded calmly. "Old human trick. You'd be surprised how creative desperation makes us." But there was no time to rest. The remaining drones regrouped, circling them from above. Their red lights glowed brighter through the rain. Eli looked at the aliens. "Get to the ridge ahead. There's a tunnel beneath the cliffs." "I'll cover you," Lyra stepped forward. "You'll die if you stay." He gave a faint smile. "Then at least I'll die human." For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then Lyra grabbed his arm. "No," she said firmly. "You won't die alone. Not anymore." The drones screamed through the storm as the four of them fought side by side, human and alien, enemies no longer. Plasma fire cut through the darkness, explosions lighting the ruined city like fireworks. When the last drone fell, silence returned, broken only by the crackle of distant thunder. Eli stood in the rain, breathing hard. His armor was scorched, his face streaked with dirt. Lyra looked at him, the last human standing like a ghost of an old world. For the first time, she understood why humans had survived so long. They weren't made of steel or fire. They were made of will. The morning came with a pale, broken light. The storm had passed, leaving behind a silence that almost felt peaceful. Smoke curled from the ruins in the distance, and the smell of burned metal filled the air. Eli led the 3 alien girls through the empty streets. His steps were slow, tired, but steady. The city stretched endlessly behind them, half buried under sand and ash. The sound of the wind was the only reminder that the planet was still alive. Lyra walked beside him, her sharp eyes scanning the horizon. "Where are we going?" she asked softly. Eli pointed toward the far desert. "There's a place out there," he said. "An old base from before the war. It's buried deep enough that the machines can't track it. That's where humanity made its last stand." Tess frowned. "You think something still works there?" Eli's lips curved in a faint smile. "I don't think." "I know." The sun rose slowly as they crossed the wasteland. The heat shimmered across the sand and the air grew thin. Bones of fallen machines lay scattered, reminders of battles long forgotten. By the time they reached the cliffs, the wind had picked up again. Eli stopped at the edge of a rocky ridge and brushed the sand from a metal panel hidden beneath. With a few quick presses on his wrist console, a deep vibration echoed below them. A circular door slowly opened in the ground, releasing a gust of cold air. "Welcome," Eli said quietly, "to the last home of humankind." They climbed down a narrow tunnel. The deeper they went, the colder it became. Lights flickered on as they passed, motion sensors still responding. After all these years, the tunnel opened into a vast, underground chamber, larger and cleaner than any place they'd seen on Earth. The walls glowed with soft blue lights, and the symbol of an old human organization was still visible, United Earth Defense Command. Lyra stared in awe. "This place, it's alive," Eli nodded. "Part of it, yes. The old systems still run on geothermal power. My father used to talk about it, said it was meant to be humanity's second beginning." Tess approached a terminal and brushed off the dust. It blinked to life, showing ancient files. "These are your people's records," she said. "History, science, memories, everything." Eli walked toward the center of the chamber where a large metal door stood sealed. He placed his hand on the scanner. The screen flashed green, then opened with a deep mechanical sigh. Inside was a room filled with cryogenic pods, hundreds of them glowing faintly. Each one held a small container of light. Lyra's eyes widened. "What is this?" Eli's voice was quiet, almost reverent. "They're the future. Human embryos. The last hope of our kind." The alien girls fell silent. Tess whispered, "You've been protecting them all this time." Eli nodded slowly. "For decades. Waiting for the right moment. For the planet to heal enough to bring them back." Vera looked around, emotion softening her face. "So that's why you survived. Not just for yourself," Eli turned to her. "Humans don't survive just to exist. We survive to rebuild." The chamber hummed softly around them. Lyra walked closer to one of the pods, pressing her hand against the glass. "They're so small," she said quietly. "And yet they carry everything your species was." Eli smiled faintly. "Hope doesn't need to be big. It just needs to last." Suddenly the lights flickered. A red warning appeared on the terminal screen. Tess stepped forward. "The system's detecting incoming movement above us. Drones again." Eli's expression hardened. They must have tracked the energy spike from the base. He began pulling open metal drawers, revealing old human weapons, rifles, grenades, and armor. "Get ready. They'll come in waves." Lyra grabbed a weapon, her hands steady. "We'll fight with you." Eli looked at her for a long moment. "Why?" "Because this isn't just your planet anymore," she said. "It's ours too now." A quiet moment passed. Two species who once hated each other now preparing to defend the same ground. The alarms grew louder. Dust fell from the ceiling as heavy footsteps echoed above. Eli loaded his rifle and took his place near the door. "If we lose here, everything dies," he said. "Every memory, every name, every story." Lyra stood beside him, her eyes fierce. "Then let's make sure history remembers this fight." The sound of metal claws scraping against steel filled the base as the first drones began to cut through the outer doors. Sparks lit the air. Eli's voice came out like a growl. "They think humans are extinct. Let's remind them how wrong they are." As the blast doors gave way, a flood of red lights filled the corridor. The battle for Earth's future had begun. The ground trembled. The air in the underground base filled with the sound of metal tearing, steel cracking, and alarms screaming. Red warning lights spun across the chamber as the first wave of scavenger drones broke through the outer doors. Eli stood at the front line, rifle ready, eyes locked on the dark corridor ahead. The three alien girls took their positions beside him, Lyra at his left, Vara at the central console. Tess crouched behind a barricade of crates with her energy pistol charged. "Remember," Eli said firmly, "we fight for the base, not for ourselves. If they breach the pod chamber, it's over." Lyra nodded. "Then we make our stand here." The first drone appeared, crawling through the smoke, tall and insect-like, its red eyes glowing with a cruel intelligence. Behind it came more, their wings folding as they entered the narrow passage. Eli fired first. The plasma bolt hit the lead drone straight in the chest, exploding it into molten shards. Sparks flew across the walls. Tess followed, sending bright blue energy blasts down the tunnel. Vara tapped her wrist device, activating the base's defense turrets. Mechanical guns dropped from the ceiling, roaring to life with flashing light. For a moment, the air turned into a storm of fire and metal. The humans' weapons, the aliens' energy tech, worked together like they had been built for one another. But the drones adapted fast. Their armor shifted, reflecting plasma fire. One jumped over the barricade, landing near Tess. She screamed as it raised its blade arm, but Eli was already there. He tackled the machine to the ground and drove a knife through its glowing core. "Stay focused," he shouted. "They learn with every second." Vara cursed under her breath. "Then let's teach them something new." She pressed several keys on her wrist pad. The lights flickered, then turned blue. "I've redirected the base's cooling vents. Hot plasma's about to flood the lower halls." Eli grinned for the first time in hours. "Good thinking." A deep rumble echoed under their feet. Seconds later, white-hot steam burst through the cracks of the floor. The nearest drones melted in the wave of heat, their screams echoing like broken machines. But there was no time to celebrate. From above, a much larger drone crashed through the ceiling, black, massive, with wings that stretched like those of a dragon. Its chest glowed red-hot, and the voice that came from it was cold and cruel. "Target. Human anomaly. Terminate." Eli's eyes narrowed. "That's no ordinary drone. That's a warlord unit." Lyra raised her weapon, fear and defiance mixed in her gaze. "Then we finish it together." The warlord drone launched a beam of searing red energy tearing through the wall. The impact threw them backward, shattering the consoles and throwing sparks across the chamber. Eli staggered to his feet, blood running down his forehead. "Vara, the core, can we overload it?" She nodded, typing furiously. "Yes, but it'll destroy the base." Eli's jaw tightened. "Then we make sure the embryos survive first." He turned to Lyra. "There's a cryopod capsule, small, shielded. Take it to the surface. If I fall, you protect it." Lyra's voice shook. "You'll come with us." But Eli only smiled faintly. "Someone has to light the fuse." The warlord drone advanced, its voice echoing like thunder. "Human species terminated." "Not yet," Eli growled. He sprinted forward, firing shot after shot. His rifle overheated, smoke pouring from it, but he didn't stop. Every blast tore pieces from the warlord's armor. The alien girls joined him, Tess firing blue bolts into its wings, Vera hacking the ceiling turrets to concentrate fire. Lyra leapt forward, using her alien blade to slash open the drone's core casing. The warlord roared, charging energy for a final blast. But Eli reached the main console and slammed his hand down on the manual override. "Humanity," he whispered. "Rises again." A blinding white light filled the base as the energy core overloaded. The explosion shook the desert above, sending fire through the tunnels and tearing the ground open. When the smoke cleared, the warlord was gone, melted into a twisted pile of metal. Lyra crawled out from behind the broken wall, coughing. The cryopod capsule was still in her arms, glowing faintly safe. Tess and Vera pulled her to her feet. "Eli," Tess whispered, looking at the smoking ruins where he had stood. There was no answer. Only silence and the faint crackle of flames. They stood there, watching as the base burned, the last fortress of humanity dying in fire, but leaving behind its seed of hope. Lyra looked up at the sky through the cracked ceiling. "He gave everything," she said quietly, "for a future he would never see." Vera placed a hand on her shoulder. "Then we make sure it's a future worth his sacrifice." The three of them walked out into the fading sunlight. the desert wind carrying the smoke into the horizon. Behind them, the fire still burned, the flame of one human heart that refused to die. The desert was silent again. The storm had passed, leaving only a sky full of pale orange light and drifting clouds of dust. The wind blew softly across the cracked earth, carrying the scent of smoke and iron. From the ashes of the underground base, 3 figures climbed upward: Lyra, Tess, and Vara, their clothes torn, their faces marked with soot and exhaustion. In Lyra's arms, she carried the small cryopod capsule, its blue glow pulsing like a heartbeat. None of them spoke for a long time. The silence was too heavy. Behind them, the ground still smoldered. The place where Eli, the last human, had made his final stand was now a crater of molten glass. The explosion had destroyed the drones, but it had also taken him with it. As they walked across the desert, Tess finally broke the silence. "He's really gone," she whispered. Lyra didn't look up. "He isn't gone," she said quietly. "He's everywhere now. In the air, in the light, in this planet." Vara glanced back at the horizon where the smoke from the destroyed base still curled into the sky. "He died for something greater," she said. "For all of us." They reached the edge of a rocky valley where the sand met the remains of a forest, a place where small green shoots pushed through the ground. Tiny leaves trembled in the wind, catching the morning sun. Lyra stopped, staring at the fragile life before her. "Look," she said softly. "The earth is healing." Tess knelt down, brushing her fingers across the new plants. The soil was warm, alive. "It's coming back," she murmured. Maybe the planet was waiting for someone to protect it again. Lyra looked at the cryopod in her hands. The blue light inside flickered stronger, as if responding to the warmth of the air. She smiled faintly. "And maybe this little life will grow under the same sky he dreamed of." Vara began setting up a small shelter from salvaged pieces of armor and metal panels they had carried. "We'll stay here," she said. "It's safe. No drones, no signals. We can begin again." The 3 of them worked in silence for hours. They built a small shelter, lit a fire, and placed the pod gently in the center, surrounded by rocks that glowed with the soft energy of their alien technology. When the sun began to set, painting the desert in shades of gold and rose, Lyra stood facing the horizon. Her hair shimmered in the light, her expression calm but filled with emotion. She took a deep breath. "Eli once said humans survive to rebuild," she said quietly. "I didn't understand it then, but now I do." Tess looked up from the fire. "He taught us more than any of our teachers ever did." Vara added softly. "He showed us what courage looks like." Lyra nodded. "And now it's our turn." She opened the cryopod gently. Inside, a soft light expanded. Tiny human cells still sleeping, still alive. "We'll protect this," she said. Until the world is ready again, the sky darkened. Stars appeared, and bright, endless, ancient. For the first time, the alien girls looked up at them not as conquerors, but as guardians. Tess smiled faintly. "Do you think more humans will come back one day?" Lyra looked at the stars. "Yes, maybe not today. Maybe not for many years. But they will come. And when they do, they'll find Earth waiting, not dead but alive." The wind shifted, carrying with it a sound. Faint, distant, almost like a heartbeat. The planet itself seemed to breathe again. They sat together around the fire, 3 alien survivors guarding the hope of an extinct world. The flames danced in their eyes, and for a moment, the silence of Earth didn't feel empty anymore. Lyra reached into her pocket and pulled out something small, a metal tag she had taken from Eli's armor before the explosion. She looked at his name carved on it, E. Caldwell's. She pressed it to her chest. "You kept your promise," she whispered. "You claimed this planet as yours, and now it belongs to all of us." She placed the tag beside the pod, under the glow of the stars. Above them, the night sky shimmered with faint lights and maybe satellites, maybe the last signals of machines dying out. But to Lyra, it looked like the earth was lighting candles for its lost children. As the fire burned low, the 3 girls lay down beside the glowing pod. The wind whispered across the dunes, carrying words that only the heart could hear. Words that sounded like Eli's voice. "Take care of this world. It's yours now." Lyra closed her eyes. For the first time since landing on Earth, she felt peace. In the distance, dawn began to rise again. Soft golden light spreading across the horizon, touching the ruins, the sand, the trees, and finally, the small shelter where 3 alien girls and 1 glowing pod waited for a future reborn. Humanity's story wasn't over. It had just begun again, under a new sun on a healed Earth.